Picture this. It's time to file your taxes and your ADHD brain skips it or ignores it. The deadline is in a few weeks. There's plenty of time. The scenario is all too familiar. You end up being last minute, late, or behind. An adult with ADHD is more likely to file tax returns late or not at all, and 1/3 feel deep shame about their financial disorganization. Well, today we're unpacking why your ADHD brain hits a wall and how you can reduce executive function overload so you can get out of tax paralysis. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for flying with us. Have a great day. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Phenomenally ADHD. I'm your host, Zarina, ADHD and money coach, unapologetic Gen X ADHDer, and I have a question for you. Are you overwhelmed or completely paralyzed at the thought of filing your taxes and put it off until the last minute? ADHD is for sure complex, and you may not always understand why you do the things you do or do them the way you do. People around you make it look easy, simple, and you seem to be the only one having a hard time getting it done. This is a mistake we often make as ADHDers, comparing ourselves with folks that don't have a brain that functions the way ours does. I'm not a big fan of comparison, but if we are to compare ourselves, it might as well be with people facing similar challenges as we do, experiencing life the way we do, and dealing with the amount of executive function efforts that we have to make. Anything else is a waste of time and shreds our self-esteem. The best comparison, though, that you can make is you versus you. Compared to yesterday, did you improve 1%? Because this 1% added to the 1% today, the 1% tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that is really going to make a huge difference in the long run. So when you compound everything that you get better at, even 1%, it becomes huge eventually. So make sure that you stay until the end, because I am going to share my simple system that prevents the overload that comes with filing taxes. We're going to look at why the ADHD brain freezes with things like filing your income tax, even if you have an accountant do it for you, and that's my case. And we're also going to look at how you can approach it differently. Now, here's the reframe I want you to hold as we go through this. The problem isn't capability, because you're more than capable. It's the combination of activation under low interest plus high executive demand. Think a skilled and talented F1 pilot driving a race car with poor mechanics and an underperforming engine. If something has already shifted for you or is making you say, "Oh, I never thought of it this way," share it in the comments. I always enjoy reading what resonates for you. But before we dive in, there's something I want you to know. Having a hard time with something like filing your taxes doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Not by a long shot. One of my biggest aha moments as a woman with ADHD was realizing how interests made a huge difference in how I do things, what happens when it's there and how things unfold when it's not. ADHD isn't a deficit of attention because we pay and sustain attention on things that really interest us. ADHD, therefore, is a deficit of interest. Without it, not much happens. Without it, challenges do get in the way. We're wired for novelty, fun, excitement, and creativity. We stand out because we won't settle for anything less. And even if we end up falling in the trap of fitting in a mold, we're eventually going to break it. So yes, interest is key in unlocking attention, focus, and concentration. Take a second to think about something you really enjoy doing, something like you're passionate about. Do you have a hard time being attentive, focused, and concentrated on the task at hand? Do you hyper-focus and feel like time stands still? Interest has definitely been something that changed how I approached money and everything that comes with it. One of the first thing I did, and something you can do too, was to make it a game because making it fun was just easier for my brain to engage. It's taking something that scares you, that you have no interest in, and that you don't want to do, and find the kernels of excitement, playfulness, and joy to tap into, create momentum, and keep motivation and focus alive. What could you do to gamify filing your taxes and make it more fun? Depending on where you're at right now, you might think it's too big of a stretch. Just keep in mind that this question is meant to call upon curiosity and creativity. Even if it's a lot less boring than it used to be, and that I do have fun getting everything ready for my accountant, I still need to ask myself, what can I do to gamify filing my taxes? Even if I know it's not going to take that long. And you'll see that it really doesn't take that long when I share my simple system later in this episode. So the method I use works, but it needs to be tweaked every now and then. The ADHD brain freezes when it's time to file your taxes because it comes around once a year, and 12 months in ADHD land is an extremely long time. It requires a lot of effort and energy to gather official documents that you need to file the report. And we're not all that good with paperwork now, are we? But there's a lot of room for improvement, that's for sure. And if you're an entrepreneur like me, well, there's a lot you need to track, which complicates things even more. Receipts get lost or misplaced, and that in itself can be enough for the ADHD brain to shut down. The number of steps to get to completion makes it hard to even start because your brain is exhausted and overwhelmed before it even begins. Taxes are like a cold engine. Poor maintenance cycle, right? Once a year. And a complex dashboard with signals that you're not sure you understand. This isn't about being a bad driver. It's about being handed a car that hasn't been tuned for the track. Filing taxes requires enormous executive function power, organization, planning, time management, memory, focus, follow through, just to name a few. Areas that work together, build on one another, and where our greatest challenges are when it comes to ADHD. Not knowing where to start, what you need, where everything you need is, and what you need to do first is enough to make you anxious and avoidant. Money issues also surface when taxes are involved, right? You can't ignore it. And it can bring worries about being able to pay back what you owe, seeing how much money you made and wondering where it went, realizing that you haven't got much savings. When something shows up with such a huge cognitive overload, things you normally dislike doing, like house chores or a sudden urge to declutter your closet, become very appealing. That is your ADHD brain giving you a signal. Taxes, like I said, demand so much energy from your brain that it can be exhausted after doing only a couple of things. And you know what? It's okay. It's not a flaw. That's how you operate. The moment I realized that it wasn't a weak point, but a wiring particularity, I stopped blaming the F1 driver, me, and started tuning the engine, the systems that were incompatible with my brain. Filing taxes is not particularly exciting for ADHD brains, and lack of interest in finances and money management is part of the reason explaining why that is. It's something that often feels blurry, complicated, and of course challenging. Your brain needs ignition, and that can't occur without a spark. If nothing arouses your curiosity, you won't find it useful to get interested in something such as filing taxes. The goal in finding that spark is to make investing your time worth it. Ignition of any kind happens when getting to work is meaningful. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. Take over. This is something I often see as an ADHD coach. It's not that you don't want to do it or don't feel like doing it. That's what a lot of undiagnosed women with ADHD have internalized. There are blockages that inhibit your ability to do it, and effective workarounds and systems that fit your engine helps in removing whatever is in the way. That's something I'll cover in an upcoming episode where I will share simple tools to make filing your taxes ADHD friendly, including how to give interest a boost. Interest can highly contribute to creating a dopamine spark, and that's why it's a lot easier for your brain to get shit done when the deadline is staring you in the face. When there's urgency, we take action, and that's great, but it can also be draining. It's also a double-edged sword pattern that creates unnecessary stress, insecurity, and panic. And there's being late, delinquent, or overdue that increases shame and guilt. Understanding what gets in the way and becoming more self-aware helps tremendously. And if you want more clarity on your money patterns and increase your self-awareness, I've linked the free ADHD and money quiz in the episode's description. All you have to do is click the link and it's all yours for free. Filing taxes is challenging because of the executive function overload it creates. Here's how I prevent cognitive overload. At the beginning of the year, and for me, that is usually between January and April, because no, as ADHDers, we don't do things like anyone else that doesn't have ADHD. So yes, it's between January and April, and I set up my 3-step system for the following year, right? So what this does is it helps me stay away from not knowing where to start or what I need, where everything I need is, and what I need to do first. Think tuning the engine, improving conditions, changing the way the car is set up for the track. Step 1, I create a Dropbox folder that I title income tax, and then I add the year it's for. And I do prefer using Dropbox because it's safer and I have a free account. So there we go, more money in my pocket. When during the year I need to upload documents, it gets done easily and it reduces the chances of me losing important papers. What is also great is that I can do all of that from my phone. I have the app, and when I get something, especially by email in a PDF format, all I do is click on the document and then automatically drop it where it needs to be. And that is like really amazing because my brain doesn't have to worry thinking about what I have to do over and over and over again. It's like, boom, the document is in Dropbox, it's done. And that takes us to step number 2. And it's something you want to do the first time you use the system. So what I did the first time I created my Dropbox folder is that I created a list of everything I needed to provide. So anything that I could think of went on that list, and the list, of course, was in the Dropbox folder. That alone reduces executive overload. And after using the system for a few years, I don't worry about forgetting to add something. The other thing is that a quick look at last year's folder gives me a visual of what the documents look like, right? Because of course, like there are documents that I will remember what they look like, but some, it's just my brain doesn't take it into account, especially due to the fact that I not only take care of my income tax documents, but the ones of my husband and my mom. So papers can come from different places. Of course, they will come from work, but it can also be investments that you have or charity you contributed to. One of the reasons this has been helpful is because some papers are delivered by mail, others are PDFs that I get in a regular email and I just have to download it. Other PDFs come in through a secure email. It's a lot to think of. That's why Dropbox makes it so easy, especially if I do all that on my phone, because it's only a few clicks. So there's not that many steps for me to get from, hey, I need to do this, to it's done. So it's a lot less overwhelming and difficult for your brain because there's less things to think about. So your brain has a lot less it needs to handle. Step number 3. This one is optional, but I highly recommend it. And that's delegating filing your income tax to an accountant. I mean, I know there are a lot of softwares out there that can help you file them, but the accountant has the knowledge, knows the deductibles that you can apply. And yes, the software can be useful, but I like the idea of having someone, like a human being, doing my income tax, because I might have questions, or I might receive a letter from the government and I need to talk to someone quickly. So that for me is just the best investment I have made over the years. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but you want an accountant that ideally will agree to work with Dropbox, because this is what makes it easy for your ADHD brain. When I changed accountant about 5 years ago, this, like having someone who agreed to work with Dropbox or any other highly secured system, is because the amount of effort my brain had to deploy from point A to point Z was just too demanding. Bringing everything to my accountant and going back to sign the documents were, by that point, too much. That's what it looks like when you tune the engine, improve conditions, and change the way the car is set up for the track. Executive function overload is preventable when you know what works and what doesn't for your engine, your brain, that you know that low interest equals low octane and no spark equals no ignition, is also preventable when you tune your systems so they fit your unique wiring. And I think that realizing how good I'd become at something I really thought was impossible was what sparked my interest. And interest is fuel. Over the past few years, I've been using a simple, still very effective way to get excited when income tax comes around, and it's to see it as a professional and financial accomplishment. The big picture of what happened in the past 12 months, where I was at the beginning of the year, compared to my report from the previous one, and where I got. So it's like, it helps me to see any progression I made, anything that I need to maybe pay more attention to, and that's really great. But before that, I hated filing my income tax return because my personal finances were in such a mess, and they are still a tiny bit messy, but I mean, there has been a lot of improvement. So I don't want you to think that, everything is all fixed and working. I'm still tweaking, I'm still adjusting, and I'm still learning. And the other reason why I hated filing my tax return is because I couldn't just pretend the financial chaos existed. I was forced to look at it. It had a lot to do with the mindset, beliefs, and behaviors I had around money. At the time, I felt a lot of resentment towards money and thought the world would be a better place if it didn't exist. By sharing all this with you, I want you to see that it's not a lost cause. There's hope. You have the power to turn things around, and it's never too late to do that. You're skilled. You just need to power the system so it works for your brain, not against it. If this is landing in a way that makes you realize that you may be ready to take it one step further, or it's making you a little curious about what working with your brain could look like, Unlock Your Financial DNA is the space where we do that. We explore how your top money archetypes shape motivation. We identify how and where ADHD becomes an obstacle, and we get creative and design money systems that match your unique wiring. You can find out more by clicking the link in the episode's description. You're skillful and creative. You're uniquely wired, and that is such an incredible strength. But most importantly, you're not broken. You need alignment, not force. You don't need to become a better driver. You need better conditions for your engine. That's how you win the race. Here's what I want you to take from this. Even the best drivers don't race alone. They have a pit crew. They have engineers. They have support systems. Trusting yourself also means knowing your strengths, designing better conditions, and when you build support around you, that's actually strategy. And that's how brilliant brains operate. Let me know what your biggest takeaway is in the comments. I love reading what you share. If you know another ADHDer who can benefit from this conversation, please share it with them and make sure to follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep on rocking that badass, phenomenal ADHD brilliance, sending lots of love your way, and I'll catch you in the next episode.